Welcome to the Anime Audiophile Podcast. Please like and subscribe for more. Thank you. Naruto Retsuden, Naruto Uzumaki, and the Spiral Destiny. Prologue. Mom, is the Lord Hokage going to come out soon, maybe? Her small hand clutched the hem of the skirt fluttering next to her face. I'm sure he will. We'll be able to see him soon, the mother said gently, turning her gaze toward the sacred site at the top of the hill. Inside of the humble sandstone shrine, the seventh Hokage himself was meeting with the daimyo of the land of Kazahashi. A large crowd had gathered below to get a glimpse of the hero on his first visit since his appointment as Hokage. The air along the smooth diagonal of the slope was rippling with excitement, and smoke arose from orange flames. However, no one was burning anything. This hill had been aflame for more than its 4,000 years of recorded history. The inextinguishable fire was seen as both a blessing of the gods and the curse of a demon, and it had been the subject of worship and fear since ancient times. When the fourth great ninja war ended and a pact among the 5 great nations brought peace to the world, news of the mysterious, eternally burning fire reached the 6th Hokage, Kakashi, and a survey team was dispatched to investigate. Using both science and ninjutsu, a vast pocket of natural gas was discovered to be seeping out from beneath the hill, which was ignited by the surface heat, creating the eternal flame. The eternal bonfire moved the air, creating a breeze that constantly rustled the dark grasses and the neat petals of the gently blooming violets. The 7th Hokage and the daimyo of the land of Kazahashi emerged from the shrine exactly on time. The conference had ended without incident. Hokage. Lord 7th. Over here. Do the Rasengan. Cheers rang out from the crowd gathered at the foot of the stairs. In response, the 7th Hokage raised his arms as if to actually produce the Rasengan, and the Konoha guard behind him hurriedly pushed them back down. Lord Hokage, please don't use the Rasengan like that. This is a matter of national defense. Come on. It's fine. Just let me, the 7th Hokage said sulkily, and then reluctantly lowered his arms. Uzumaki Naruto. He was top shinobi of Kanagakur, the young leader appointed to the position of guardian of the land of fire, the 7th Hokage. His bright golden hair flashed like lightning, his clear blue eyes were reminiscent of Ramen soda in summer. He was in his mid-30s, but there was a boyish innocence in his unaffected manner. It was established fact that he was the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, but his face was less fox and more tanuki. Not only were his eyes, nose, and mouth large, but his face was very expressive. Every part of it seemed to be in constant motion. It wasn't just his face either, his every move was exaggerated, drawing people's eyes to him. He was a charismatic leader with a personal magnetism that attracted everyone to him, and the way he was beloved transcended everything else. Accompanied by several guards, the 7th Hokage slowly began to descend the stairs built into the diagonal slope of the hill. The red carpet at his feet had been a special order especially for this day, and it extended the entire distance to the entrance of the airship parked near the base of the hill. Naruto stopped abruptly halfway down the carpet, squinted his eyes as though the sun's glare was too strong, and looked off into the distance. He could no doubt see the far-off skyscrapers piercing the clouds. The faded field at the foot of the hill ended abruptly at the border of the capital city, where the sharp, inorganic elements of the urban landscape took shape. The land of Kazahashi had developed rapidly once it began exporting its gas to the 5 great nations, which used it as fuel for their large transport vessels. The GDP had increased 17-fold. Over a decade, new infrastructure was created, and there almost seemed to be too many social services. The average lifespan of its citizens had increased by 20 years. The land was swimming in money. What it lacked was legends and lore. Stories of heroes. Lord Hokage, how did you find your stay in the land of Kazahashi? Reporters surrounded the 7th Hokage, shoving microphones in his face when he finished descending the stairs. I'm glad I got to experience the development of the land of Kazahashi firsthand. I came before as a guard with the survey team that was dispatched by the previous Hokage. Just seeing the development of the land of Kazahashi since then made the trip worth it. Shrieks of "please come again" greeted the Hokage's comments. "Ah, well, find me another reason to," the Hokage replied, laughing, and the crowd broke out into applause. The people of the land of Kazahashi adored the leaders of the storied ninja villages. They especially revered the leader of Kanagakur, the Hokage. At a time when smithing was the main industry and most people still lived hand-to-mouth, the financial assistance from Madoka Ikkyu, the Land of Fire's daimyo, and the sixth Hokage, Itachi Kakashi, was a lifeline that lifted them out of a depressed economy and into a new industry of refining Kazahashi gas. Not long after, the economic growth of the land of Kazahashi had surpassed that of the Land of Fire, and the grateful citizens had never forgotten the country that had once uplifted them in their years of poverty. The more people loved the seventh Hokage, the more influence he possessed, and ultimately the more enemies he inevitably had. No doubt the person who commissioned the assassination of Uzumaki Naruto was one of those enemies. Staring intently at Naruto as he spoke with the media, Naruto narrowed his eyes. A rogue ninja and expert assassin, he had changed his appearance with the art of transformation and gotten quite close to the Hokage. A basic principle of assassination is to kill when the target is alone, but Naruto often chose to work among crowds. He liked a surprise attack surrounded by an indeterminate number of eyes, a feat made possible thanks to a 4-person cell that took full advantage of the art of multiple shadow doppelgangers. His Kekkei Genkai allowed Naruto not only to gain the accumulated memories of any doppelganger who disappeared, but also to share those same memories with the remaining avatars. During an assassination, the very nature of which was unpredictable, being able to secretly exchange information like this was a huge advantage. His doppelgangers A, B, and C were already in place and locked onto the Hokage. Meanwhile, there were only 3 bodyguards around the Hokage. The promised payoff was enormous. If he could pull off this job, he, his children, and even his children's children would spend the rest of their days in leisure. Naruto looked around at the crowd at the foot of the hill and exhaled his tension. The 7th Hokage's life meant money. Way more than the Kazahashi gas. Naruto's doppelganger A was hiding in the thick branches of a tree and looking down on the 7th Hokage. The luxurious goat hair carpet upon which the Hokage walked was extravagantly dyed with sapanwood. Not only was his pathway blatantly obvious, but the area surrounding him was completely wide open. The exposed fields with essentially no blind spots practically screamed, "Go ahead, kill me." The Hokage's right hand, Narashikamaru, had no doubt argued vehemently against such a route, but the Kazahashi's side had pushed it through, saying something about how this hill was the most sacred place in their country. Doppelganger A touched the rifle in his hand and reminded himself of how it worked. The cutting-edge photon gun supplied by their employer was designed to attack from a distance with a 40,000-watt excimer laser beam. Because the heat of the laser was instantaneously transmitted from cell to cell, even if the beam only grazed the tip of a hair, the target's body temperature would shoot up uncontrollably within minutes, and the target would internally combust. Doppelganger A readjusted his hands on the grip and lifted his face to find the media peppering the 7th Hokage with questions. The Land of Fire also imports gas from the Land of Wind, yes? I know they've long had a strong relationship with the Land of Fire, but some people are saying that the two countries favor each other and are trying to lock Kazahashi gas out of the market. What do you think about that? What? Who's saying that? No way, the Hokage replied firmly. The Kazakage's an old friend, but we set that aside for any country-level negotiations. Then you're saying there's no favoritism? The reporter persisted. Nope, none. We import tons of gas, but that Gara guy won't even give his pal a discount, Naruto riffed. Laughter rose up from the media crowded around the visitor. The 7th Hokage deftly evaded the pushy questions, whether through his own natural personality or careful calculation. Doppelganger A glanced down at his watch. 10 minutes had been allotted for this press conference. The Hokage would soon start down the carpet that had been made specifically for him and move toward his airship, leaving himself wide open. That's when he would make his move. He impatiently tightened his grip on the photon gun and licked his dry lips. Ayu. A slice of wind grazed his cheek. He looked to the side as the air squealed, and a dagger plunged into the trunk of the tree. Stunned, I moved around to a position behind the trunk and crouched down. He was here to take out the Hokage from a safe distance, but for some reason, he was the one now under attack. When and how had he been found out? Who threw that dagger? Where were they? His mind reeling, he shoved a hand into his jacket to counterattack. The leaves above his head rustled and one dropped onto his knees. A gloved hand grabbed his neck from behind while he gripped the photon gun. He lifted his face and met sleepy eyes, like those of a mountain goat. He saw the face of a lazy-looking man, half covered by a cloth. He'd more than seen this face before. This man was Itachi Kaka. A kunai sank into his throat before he could finish saying the name. The tip of the twisting blade severed bone and flesh, and droplets of blood spurted up and spattered the foliage. Poof! Wrapped in smoke, it disappeared without a trace. As it disappeared, his memories flowed into the heads of the original Naruto and his two remaining doppelgangers B and C. The last sight A had seen was the worst possible thing imaginable. Itachi Kakashi. With his lazy, drooping eyes and his perceived lack of drive, he seemed like a sloth of a man at first glance. But not a single shinobi in the 5 great nations was deceived by this appearance. As the former Hokage, Itachi Kakashi was simply too well known. For one thing, he had been the one to dispatch the Kizahashi gas survey team, so his popularity rivaled that of the 7th Hokage in the land of Kizahashi. With so much fame, how he could go unnoticed by a single person in a crowd was proof of how adept Kakashi was at erasing his aura. Naruto remembered reading a story in the newspaper about how Kakashi had been living a quiet life after retiring as the 6th Hokage, spending his time onsen hopping. Naruto never dreamed that the shinobi was still active in the field and working as a guard for the 7th Hokage in addition to that. He kicked slowly at the dirt with his straw sandals. Itachi Kakashi had deliberately missed hitting him with the first kunai in order to allow Naruto's doppelganger to see his face. He had most likely meant to intimidate Naruto. His initial attack had been a warning for third-rate assassins to quietly abort the mission and walk away since they didn't stand a chance against the Itachi Kakashi. What an annoying man, using his celebrity like that. Had he cut his head off just for show, to demonstrate that he was more powerful than Naruto and to scare them away? He pulled his hands into his sleeves and wiped the sweat away. Calm down. Don't let your nerves show on your face. He'll find you if you're acting unusual. He inhaled and held the breath for a moment before parting his lips to let it out. But something blocked his mouth. An arm quickly followed, wrapping around his neck, and he was yanked up, a whistling breath escaping his panicked lips. He grabbed the wrist of whoever was covering his mouth. Slender. A woman's wrist. Trying to get away somehow, he kicked his left leg back, but his kick was ill-judged. The tips of his toes kicked up and hit nothing but empty air. And then, as if his assailant was taking advantage of this opening, she kicked the leg he was standing on out from under him. He flailed forward until she caught him with a leg, and he was pinned in place, unable to move. Deprived of oxygen, his brain slowly shut down. In his hazy mind, he could vaguely feel something soft touching his back. So it was a woman. A female ninja guarding the 7th Hokage alongside Itachi Kakashi. A woman with enough skill to finish him off with no one in the crowd any the wiser, and immense strength that brooked no resistance. Haruno Sakura? He was sure of it, but he never found out if his guess was correct. Without so much as a glimpse of the face of the person strangling him, he turned into smoke and disappeared. What was going on? Wasn't the guard detail supposed to be light? C panicked. Itachi Kakashi and Haruno Sakura, two extremely capable, extremely famous shinobi, were both guarding the 7th Hokage. They could go 10 against 1 in a direct fight with these two, and they still wouldn't stand a chance. The 7th Hokage was slowly walking toward the airship. Calm down, he told himself. I'm a doppelganger. They can attack, but I'll only disappear. I won't die. It's already been 5 seconds since B vanished. The fact that I'm still okay means they haven't realized I'm an assassin yet. C touched the photon gun hidden inside his jacket. It's okay. I can get it done. He let out a deep breath and waited for the Hokage to pass in front of him. Just a little longer. A few more steps. Then he noticed a man with black hair standing on the other side of the path created by the red carpet. Being a head taller than anyone around him, he was quite conspicuous. While everyone else was focused on the Hokage, he alone was sweeping his gaze out across the citizens instead of looking at the hero from the land of fire. His chiseled features were only too well known among the shinobi. Uchiha Sasuke. Even that monster was part of the guard? A frontal attack was out of the question, he decided, and pulled a nearby woman to him. Don't move. I'll kill her, he shouted, pressing the barrel of the gun to the woman's forehead. People around them shrieked and scattered. Sasuke stepped out to protect the Hokage, who had now stopped walking. Perfect. The photon gun had enough firepower to pierce 7 grown men standing in a line. He would get rid of both of them in one go. The man raised his arm to turn the barrel towards Sasuke's chest. At least, that's what he intended to do. But somehow, it wasn't his arm that moved but his finger. His lightly bent middle finger moved on its own and pulled the trigger. The laser shot out of the barrel and through the woman's temple. Bang! Flying out from inside her shattered head were crows. Too many to count. Ebony feathers danced up around him. He was suddenly overcome by a dizzying torpor, and unable to stay on his feet, he dropped to his knees. Jinjutsu. He knew it, but he still couldn't fight his eyelids slipping downward. Poof. He disappeared. They got all my doppelgangers. Hianaru bit his lip. Itachi Kakashi. Haruno Sakura. And Uchiha Sasuke. The security for the 7th Hokage was over the top. Given the Hokage's own strength, it was excessive, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Hianaru seriously doubted that today's inspection warranted this kind of firepower. Or maybe the advance intel he'd been given was actually true? He'd only half listened to the story about the 7th Hokage being seriously ill, so weak that he was no stronger than the average person in a fight. Hianaru hadn't believed his luck could possibly be that good. Now, however, seeing the bodyguards the Hokage was traveling with, it took on the flavor of truth. This crew wouldn't come together unless the situation was that serious. In which case, this was maybe a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Lord Hokage. Hianaru stood in the middle of the carpet and looked back at the Hokage walking behind him. Uzumaki Naruto also stopped and turned his carefree blue eyes toward Hianaru. He looked without suspicion at Hianaru, who had accompanied and guarded him constantly these past 3 days. Hianaru swiftly approached the Hokage and moved diagonally to create a blind spot. He turned the kunai he had hidden in his sleeve toward the Hokage's chest. The tip hovered above his heart, coated in a deadly poison, and Hianaru was about to push it in when his body abruptly stiffened. He couldn't move. Not his hands or his feet. He couldn't even blink. What a asshole. Naruto sighed in annoyance. Honestly, making us work like that. You're the last of the assassins, yeah? Naruto's palm strike drove into his solar plexus, and Hianaru gasped. His mind went blank as he toppled forward into Naruto's arms. Moegi, Udon. This is the real one. Take him away. The 2 young guards on standby behind Naruto quietly stepped forward and held Hianaru up by each arm. He wanted to tell them to let go, but his throat was frozen and he couldn't speak. He tried to run, but his body would not obey him. The only part of him that was still functioning properly was his ears. He could hear people cheering. No one in the crowd seemed to have noticed there was a battle unfolding before their very eyes. Hanaru was dragged away and handed over to the Kizahashi guards. The seventh Hokage walked forward, head held high, responding to the applause of the people with his gaze, and stepped up the ramp and into the airship. At the top of the ramp, he looked back at the crowd, and the cheering grew noticeably louder. He locked eyes with a boy jumping up and waving his hand, and waved in return. Once the airship lifted off, the Hokage moved away from his staff and headed toward the passenger cabin that had been prepared for him. Before he pulled the door open, he felt around for auras in the area, and, after confirming he was alone, he slipped into the room. Lying on the floor in the middle of the cabin was Uzumaki Naruto. NNNN. NPHHNGHNGH. MGGNPHHNNGH. His hands and feet were bound, and his mouth was gagged. Don't glare at me. And I totally have no idea what you're saying. The Hokage removed the gag, wet with saliva, and Naruto howled, Shikamaru. Untie me this second. What else were we supposed to do? You wouldn't listen to us. I told you I was going to go to today's meeting. Poof. The usual sound was heard as Shikamaru shed the look of the Hokage he had worn to the meeting and returned to his original appearance. He scratched his head in annoyance. They basically agreed to everything we wanted. The import price of gas will be the same, no increase. I don't know if that's why, but there were assassins in the mix, looking to take you out. My taking your place was definitely the right choice. What? The look on Naruto's face changed at the word assassins. No one was hurt, right? Like we'd let anyone get hurt. Who do you think was standing guard? Shikamaru said coolly as he untied Naruto. The ropes were reinforced with the full force of the scientific ninja tool team and imbued with concentrated chakra. They couldn't be ripped apart with the strength Naruto currently possessed. The assassin was a 4-person cell made up of 3 shadow doppelgangers and himself. The doppelgangers were all taken care of by the guards. The man himself I caught with shadow possession, and we handed him over to the Kizahashi side. I hope they get him to spill who hired him. So the guards. No way. Naruto had a sudden bad feeling about all of this, and as if in response, a board on the ceiling was peeled away to allow 3 figures to drop down soundlessly. Itachi Kakashi, Uchiha Sakura, and Uchiha Sasuke, the team guarding the 7th Hokage that day. Naruto looked at each of them in turn and then lowered his eyes in frustration. I told you. I don't need bodyguards. He hated this so much. If only he wasn't in the state he was in, he wouldn't need to waste shinobi this powerful on babysitting the Hokage. Chapter 1. The first episode had occurred 6 months earlier. He was pretty sure it was his second night of no sleep and a streak of all-nighters, maybe even the third. He had new ordinances to enact and a meeting of the 5 Kages all in the same week. It was a busy time. He hadn't been feeling well for a few days. He was dazed, sluggish, and maybe running a slight fever, but above all else, he wasn't sleeping, so he figured he was just out of sorts from sleep deprivation. Naruto, sorry. Could you give us another doppelganger? It was after 2 in the morning when Shikamaru came into the Hokage's office, deep, dark circles under his eyes. The Institute made some last-minute progress with the chakra research, he said wearily. That in and of itself is great, but now the numbers for the meeting have changed, and we basically need to redo all the documents. And we do not have enough people to do it. Yeah, Naruto answered just as wearily and lifted his face from his computer. His eyes were tired and dry from glaring at numbers in a spreadsheet. He leaned back in his chair, rubbed his eyes, and blinked repeatedly before weaving signs without thinking about much of anything. Just like always. Instantly, an intense bolt of pain shot through his chest, like his torso was being ripped in two. Ah! He fell forward, his head hit his desk, and he dropped to his knees on the floor. Naruto? Shikamaru cried. After a second or two, the pain disappeared like a wave receding, and All that was left were the tingling aftershocks. What's wrong, Naruto? What hurts? Shikamaru peered at him. Brow furrowed. Oh. For a second there, my chest, it was like. Naruto staggered too. His feet. What was that? He'd never experienced that kind of pain before. Was it because he was weaving signs? Nervously, he locked his fingers together once more. Poof! A doppelganger appeared. Huh. He stared at it. There it is. What just happened there? Shikamaru asked. Yeah, it was like, I dunno, this serious pain was like SHRRMP. Naruto described the pain with a noise that didn't sound particularly painful. High blood pressure, his doppelganger teased, patting him on the shoulder. It's 'cause all you eat is ramen. Shut up. Naruto snapped. I'm not that old, you know. Shikamaru watched the two carry on with a hard look on his face. He was aware that the burden on the Hokage was too great with the current administrative system. He'd submitted proposal after proposal to the daimyo to revise and improve the system, but resistance to change was strong because it meant going against tradition. Any debate over these proposals had been postponed time and again since it was not considered an urgent matter. Naruto had been pushing himself too hard for way too long. And yet, Shikamaru couldn't just tell him to take some time off. But watching him struggle was hard to bear. Theoretically, the Hokage was the leader of the institution responsible for defending the Land of Fire, the shinobi village. But during the long years of endless war, the entire nation had come to depend on the shinobi for more than just defense and look to them for community leadership. The authority of the Hokage consequently grew in proportion, beyond the bounds of defense. The Hokage became the leader of the military force of the shinobi village, but he also supervised administrative matters. It was a complex and delicate position that required disciplined discretion of the individual himself. And so it was hard to simply redistribute some of the Hokage tasks. This won't make you feel better, but drink it anyway. Shikamaru tossed Naruto some herbal medicine mixed up by the medical team. Naruto drank down the energy drink, got himself back on track, and focused on his duties, and before long, he had completely forgotten the flash of lightning that had raced through his chest. The second time the pain came was 2 weeks later. He was out on the training ground with his son, Boruto, one evening. The meeting of the 5 Kages had ended without incident, and he was watching Boruto train to make up for time he hadn't spent with his son in a while. Ah. Oh. Duh. Hiya. The shuriken that Boruto launched one after the other spun neatly through the air and struck the targets to the north, east, south, and west. Thok. 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 He was doing shuriken and kunai throwing practice, his worst skills. Yes. I got him, he cried. Whoa, nice work, Naruto said. Okay, next we'll practice an even tighter curve. What? Tighter than that? I want to practice Rasengan though. Boruto looked back at Naruto reproachfully and sulked. I mean, I got Sarada on my team, you know? I can just let her do the shuriken stuff. Listen, you. Naruto looked down at his son. Once you're a Chunin, you won't be teamed up with the same people all the time. But, like, I don't know what to do with the curves. Isn't there a trick or something? A trick. Naruto put his hands on his hips and thought about it. Right. Can you put a curve on Rasengan? A little, Boruto replied. I feel like it's kinda like that. Meaning? Boruto's blue eyes shone with expectation as he looked up at Naruto. I told you. When you want to bend the Rasengan, you go like Naruto suddenly stopped. This was an action he performed through feel and instinct, like how he moved his arms and legs. He tried to articulate the process in words, but he couldn't find the right words. You gotta go ga, and then bam. You know. He himself was aware that his words conveyed no meaning. But surprisingly, Boruto nodded. "Oh, I get it. Go ga, and then bam. Huh. Like that, okay. Definitely my kid." Naruto was tickled and tousled Boruto's spiky blonde hair. "Huh? Quit it." Boruto swung back and forth and shrugged his shoulders to evade Naruto's hand, but for all his annoyed gesturing, he seemed pretty happy. "Okay. Practice start. You make some obstacles with Earth style, Dad, and I'll avoid them to hit the targets." Yeah. Boruto turned his back to Naruto and readied his shuriken. Naruto brought his hands together. Just like he always did, he went to his signs and kneaded his chakra. Thump. Suddenly, his heart pounded hard. A familiar dizzying pain spread out in his chest. NNNGH. On the verge of screaming, Naruto gritted his teeth. He pressed a hand to his chest and let out a long breath. With his back turned to his father, Boruto hadn't noticed anything. "Boruto. Sorry." Naruto mustered his strength to keep his voice from shaking and worked hard to act like he was fine, that everything was fine. "Looks like your dad has an emergency to take care of." "What? Again?" Boruto said unhappily and turned around. But Naruto was already kicking at the ground. Ayu. He left so fast, it looked like he had simply vanished. The ground was ringed with woods for training purposes, and now Naruto raced through those trees, hurrying toward the old city. His heart was thumping and pounding faster and faster. This was not normal. He had to get to the hospital, get Sakura to take a look at him. Thump. Electric agony drilled into his body, and Naruto flipped over and collapsed on the spot. He dug his nails into the earth and somehow managed to sit up, but he couldn't find the strength to do anything more than stay slumped over. NGH. It was no use. There was no way he could make it to the hospital. Desperately, he crawled forward and managed to make his way into an aviary in the woods. It had been built a long time ago to raise falcons for communication purposes and was still in use at the time of the Great War, but it had sat empty for several years now. The walls, exposed to the wind and the rain, were on the verge of crumbling. Screws flew out of the chicken wire when Naruto pushed against it, and it tumbled with him into the small building. Ah. NGH. Ugh. The inside of the aviary was also in a sorry state. Old feathers stained with rainwater strewn across the floor emitted a rank smell. Naruto pulled himself on all fours across the rotten sawdust that covered the ground and curled up in one corner. No matter what, he couldn't let the people of the village see him like this. Not this sniveling, pathetic version of the 7th Hokage who was supposed to protect the village. It would only cause worry. NGH. Waves of pain washed through his body, so intense that he could hardly breathe. He couldn't stop the shaking that came up from deep in his core. NGH. How long was he there like that, covered in mud? Naruto leaned back against the wall and looked up at the ceiling with boards missing. He took a deep breath. When the pain finally subsided, his face was covered in tears and sweat and saliva. I didn't get to finish Boruto's lesson. He was talking to himself, but a voice inside his head answered. This is not the time to be bothered about that. Kurama, he said, surprised. You're awake? When my vessel moans and groans so dramatically, it does tend to wake me up. Despite his usual post-awakening grumpiness, Kurama's voice was clear. I was convinced you were under attack. Naruto, what happened? No idea. He wiped his face with his sleeve, pressed a hand to the wall, and got to his feet. I tried to weave a sign, and my chest suddenly started hurting. A sign? Yeah. Last time too. The second I went to weave a sign. Naruto. Kurama's voice grew even more serious. If you wish to be free of regret, assemble trustworthy comrades and begin to investigate immediately. Investigate? Yes, Kurama continued slowly. When the old sage was staying in the land of Ridaku, he had the same symptoms. He managed to recover somehow. But, Naruto, I don't know if that will be the case for you as well. Outside of the traditional sweets shop in the old city, there was a sign that said, "Strawberry Daifuku are finished for today." Tammy, the owner of the shop, was sitting on the bench outside, wearing the same cherry pink jacket her staff wore. The enormous bun on the top of her head was quite conspicuous. Lord Hokage. She stood up thoughtfully when she noticed Naruto and turned a smile on him. "Hey, Tammy," he said. "Closing early? We did good business again today. It's getting to be time I opened a second shop." "I wish you would. My son was grumbling about how your Daifuku are impossible to get." Tammy laughed and turned her gaze toward the shop. "They're all here. You're the last to arrive." "Got it." Naruto opened the door with familiar ease. The showcase at the front of the shop was modern glass paneling, but one step inside revealed a wooden house in the old style. An account book and abacus stood on the shelf of the narrow reception area. A mosquito coil smoldered in one corner of the room, and the thin stream of smoke slipped up and escaped outside through gaps in the transom. Naruto took off his shoes and stepped up into the room. He pulled the hair ornament used as a bookmark out of the account book and inserted one of the dangling cherry branch decorations into a small hole in the wall. VWWM. A motor hummed, and a lock snapped open. The wall appeared to be made of a reddish-brown wood, but now it was suddenly transparent like a sheet of acrylic. This was a Kangaquin Research Institute invention that used liquid crystal to transform a transparent material into a pattern using the application of a current. The device could perfectly reproduce any kind of material right down to the texture, so it was handy for hiding large objects and entrances to rooms. Naruto pushed on the wall, and it turned like a revolving door, allowing him inside. Up ahead was a hidden room. When pain attacked Kanagakure, the shop owner Tammy hadn't been able to flee in time, and Sakura had rescued her. She had been very devoted to Sakura and their relationship ever since. That same devotion led to the hidden room at Tammy's Suites as the venue for this meeting of Naruto and his friends. Tammy likely hadn't the slightest idea that the 7th Hokage was facing a real crisis. She knew that Naruto and his friends were famous and figured they were looking for a private place to hang out together away from prying eyes. Naruto made his way up the narrow staircase, and when he pushed open the sliding door at the end of a short hallway, a lantern's light flickered across the bare beams of the small attic room. Kakashi, Sasuke, Sakura, and Shikamaru were all sitting around a small fire. Naruto reached behind himself to pull the door shut and sat down cross-legged on the tatami mats. Sweets and tea were set out on top of a round lacquer tray, perhaps a thoughtful gesture from Tammy. "How are you feeling?" The first to open her mouth was Sakura, as she turned concerned eyes on him. "Well, about the same," he said. "Meaning it's not any better, HM? How many episodes have you had since we got back from the land of Kazuhashi?" she asked. "Be honest." Sensing the sharp edge in Sakura's voice, Naruto replied reluctantly. 2. One big, one little. "I see." Sakura's voice was cool. He could tell she was trying not to let on how serious she felt it was. The intense pain in his chest, the trouble breathing the first 2 attacks had been when he needed his chakra, but ever since the third one, they'd been happening out of the blue when he was doing nothing at all. And they were increasing in frequency. The cause was unknown. Sakura had examined him, but she hadn't found anything out of the ordinary. She'd also been unable to find any bacterial or viral infection. So there was no treatment for him. All she could do was tell him not to use chakra. The only insight they had about his affliction was that the Sage of Six Paths had it too. According to Nine Tails, the Sage of Six Paths had also suffered from the exact same symptoms that now troubled Naruto. This was back when the old sage had just let 10 tails into his body. He had episodes of pain and apparently recovered when he was staying in the remote land of Ridaku in the west. They just didn't know how he'd gotten better. Maybe you should talk to Hinata about your symptoms, Sakura suggested. Naruto shook his head. He didn't want to worry his family unnecessarily. Let's get right to it. I've got a progress report, Shikamaru calmly interjected. We've gone through all the libraries in the land, looking for anything on the land of Ridaku, but to be honest, we've got nothing. The very existence of the land of Ridaku is treated like a legend in most books, and I can't find anything with any details. About the only one that looks to be of any help at all is this. Shikamaru tossed a bundle of papers onto the tatami. A copy of the book in question. Unfortunately, it's written in an ancient language, so we won't be reading it anytime soon. But I managed to pick out the proper nouns and can confirm that there's stuff about when the Sage of Six Paths was in the land of Ridaku. That's about all I can get from it. I've asked the Institute to decipher it, but I expect it'll take them some time. The Kangdaquin Research Institute was the international agency built with the consensus of the 5 great nations after the Great Ninja War. Unlike the village's scientific team, the agency did not belong to any nation in particular. Its purpose was to forward the development of science, culture, and education. Its head office was currently located in the land of Kazahashi. Not great, Kakashi said and continued without urgency as he poured tea into cups. You're not the only one with nothing. I sent a hawk to the king of the land of Ridaku and asked about the Sage of Six Paths stay there. But I got no reply. Maybe something happened. The land of Ridaku, separated from the outside world by a mountain range 13,000 feet high, and maintained a policy of strict isolation for so many centuries that it now belonged to an entirely different cultural sphere than the land of fire and the other great nations. In recent years, as Hokage, Kakashi had started corresponding with Ridaku's king, the first official exchange between the two countries in recorded history. The letters were nothing more than a simple exchange of information about their respective nations, and it was more a modest correspondence between two leaders rather than any kind of diplomatic relations. The way things stood, Naruto and his friends simply had too little information to go on. Looks like our only option is actually to go there ourselves, Sasuke said, sounding totally sedate as usual. Directly ahead of him, the round firelight of the lamp flickered and filled the room. I'll go. Naruto somehow managed to swallow the words on the tip of his tongue. They had no idea how many days it was to the land of Ridaku. The 7th Hokage couldn't exactly disappear for a lengthy period on unofficial business. I'll go. It was Kakashi who offered himself up. I'm the only one here who has a connection with Ridaku's king. I wanted to go and see him sometime after I retire anyway, so this is perfect. Plus, I've got nothing going on right now. Even if you take the train to the far west of the 5 great nations and then go to the capital from there, Sakura said, if you hurry, it'll take maybe 2 weeks. No. Sasuke shook his head. He'll need to get his body used to the oxygen concentration at higher altitudes. It'll take 20 days. Right. Kakashi nodded. Well, either way, best to leave as soon as possible, Master Kakashi, you don't have to do this. Naruto threw cold water on the conversation unfolding before him. Shikamaru turned exasperated eyes on him. Of course he does. You can't keep going like this. But this is my own personal problem. Master Kakashi. Sasuke, Sakura, Shikamaru, you're all valuable resources for Konoha. I can't go using you for something like this. Sasuke glared questioningly at Naruto. Those who don't obey will be stripped of ninja status, he said, obvious anger in his voice. Naruto fell silent. Kakashi quickly spoke up again. That's exactly right. We're ninja failures, Naruto, when it comes to you. Sorry I can't live up to your expectations, but when something's going on with you, I just can't make myself care about going by the books. Naruto slowly lifted his gaze and looked at each of his friends in turn. None of them showed it on their faces, but he had known them all a long time, so he could tell just how worried they were. Kurama had told him to get his friends together to investigate the illness, and the first people he had spoken to were these four. But the truth was, he hadn't wanted to tell anyone. He didn't want to cause any extra worry over him. Well, I get how you feel. Kakashi shifted his weight where he sat cross-legged. But whatever you say, I'm going to the land of Ridaku. If I'm going, though, it'd be a huge help if we could make it official Hokage business rather than private business. I could use the travel budget. Travel expenses were not the real reason for this request. Naruto glared at the tatami mats. If the media found out about Kakashi's trip to the land of Ridaku after the fact, they would probably tear Naruto apart. The Hokage is using the shinobi of the village for personal business. But if there was a record of it being an official mission, then at least he couldn't be criticized for a private dispatch. Naruto, Shikamaru said, and Naruto lifted his gaze. If I can speak as the Hokage's aide, we shouldn't begrudge the resources in looking for a reason for this illness. If something happened to you, it would be a devastating loss for the village. To be honest, it would have an impact on the power balance of the 5 great nations. And we also bear responsibility for bringing this on. Kakashi picked up where Shikamaru left off. We've relied on you too much for too long. Both during the 4th Great Ninja War and the rebuilding afterward. The daimyo of the other countries acknowledged that your strength is what built the peace we have now, and you've also been a major part of building up the Land of Fire. But the end result's been all the heavy burdens being placed on your shoulders alone. It's the same for you guys. Naruto looked around at his friends. Shikamaru, supporting the Hokage both on stage and behind the scenes as his advisor, Sasuke, protecting Konoha from the shadows in his missions in undeveloped areas, Sakura, giving her everything to developing medical treatments, Kakashi, who laid the foundations for the current Konoha as the 6th Hokage. Although their roles were all different, they were all shouldering the same burden. I'll go too, Sasuke declared abruptly. The land of Ridaku is a city-state. Information may not necessarily be concentrated in the capital. Better to have more hands on deck. No, Sasuke, Naruto said. I can't go using you for my illness. Absolutely not. They already had a very capable resource in the form of Kakashi on the job. Naruto couldn't also involve Sasuke in what was his own personal problem. Sasuke, I need you on other missions for the sake of the village. That is very much in order as Hokage. But I don't have to obey it, Sasuke told him. I'm not an official shinobi. I work with you because I want to. Don't give me that. A vein popped up on Naruto's forehead. Which is more important, the future of the village or my life? Your life, came Sasuke's immediate response. Without it, we can't protect the future of the village. Whatever you say, I'm going to do what I think is best. Anyone want tea? Sakura held up the teapot to interrupt their bickering. Please. Shikamaru put his cup forward. Kakashi followed suit. I'll have some too. Pale green liquid spilled gently from the spout and swirled around as it filled the insides of the teacups. Naruto narrowed his eyes sharply like a fox and glared at Sasuke. Not to be outdone, Sasuke glared back with an equally powerful stare. Okay, I'll go to the land of Ridaku first and poke around, Kakashi said slowly, holding his steaming cup of tea in both hands. If I need help, I'll send a hawk. It won't be too late for Sasuke to come then. Right. Sakura nodded and reached for a strawberry daifuku. Sasuke, you can watch Sarada and Boruto train for the first time in a while. Neither Naruto nor Sasuke said anything, but simply continued to glare at each other in the small space lit with the wavering fire. Shikamaru let out an annoyed sigh. The next morning, after getting the 7th Hokage's seal on his papers for an out-of-country mission, Kakashi set off for the land of Ridaku. Naruto was too busy and too frustrated by his illness of unknown cause to wallow in guilt for dispatching Kakashi. Between attending various meetings in multiple locations, he also finished off the mountain of paperwork on his desk. In the afternoon, he received a report on the Umbu's investigations, followed by a discussion of how to address the suspicious movements of international agencies. Should their response be urgent? Should they act even without concrete proof? The meeting took them into the evening, and though it was heated, they eventually settled on maintaining the status quo and remaining vigilant. By the time Naruto returned to his office, the sun had long set. As he began his slow review of proposals for the new curriculum at the academy, he sucked down a tube of nutrient jelly instead of eating actual food. Then Shikamaru walked in. "You're still here," he said casually, an open laptop computer resting on one arm. "Any episodes today?" "Not a one," Naruto replied. The truth was, there had been one, just this afternoon. Fortunately, he'd been alone in his office, and it wasn't too severe, so he'd locked the door and waited for it to pass while he curled into himself. "Yeah?" Shikamaru closed the door behind him. "Rejoice, Naruto. I got a note from the Institute. Said they're making progress deciphering that text." "For real?" Naruto leaped to his feet. Shizen joining the deciphering team's been huge. Shock and awe. They've gotten 4 whole lines in a single day. Jiri. 4 lines? That's it? Okay, you don't need to be so obviously disappointed, Shikamaru said. Those 4 lines had a ton of info in them. When he visited the land of Ridaku, the Sage of 6 Paths apparently stayed at the astronomical observatory opened by this astronomer called Jean-Marc Tatar. There's a real possibility that he recovered from his illness while he was there. Whoa! And that's it. Come on. Shoulders slumping, Naruto dropped back down into his chair. Well, that is a step forward at least. He forced a smile onto his face. Yup. A step. It might feel small, but you should be happy about it. Shikamaru pulled a nearby garbage can toward him, spread his legs, and sat down. I sent a hawk to let Master Kakashi know. Although we should still have him head for the capital first, like we planned. And then, about the assassination attempt in the land of Kizahashi. It seems the would-be assassin Azinoru killed himself. Naruto scowled at this. In the end, we didn't get any intel from him about who was behind it, Shikamaru continued with a hard look on his face. He tapped at the laptop to bring up an email. The Land of Kizahashi investigation team sent a list of questions for the 7th Hokage. Stuff like, do you have any enemies? What? I've got way too many of those, believe it. Right. As the Hokage, Naruto was in a position which made it inevitable that he would have at least a few enemies. As the peace continued and memories of the great ninja war faded from hearts and minds, there were people, even among the villagers of Konoha, who spoke venomously behind his back, saying things like a hero of war is basically a murderer. The fact that he deliberately targeted you at that meeting might mean someone from Kizahashi was involved, Shikamaru said, frowning in annoyance. There are sparks flying between the 2 countries over the price of gas, right? So it's about Kizahashi gas? Naruto asked, arching an eyebrow. The folks in Kizahashi don't like how the Institute is developing new energy sources with Land of Fire funding. They won't be able to keep going if demand for their gas drops. Naruto frowned. It was true that the Land of Kizahashi had sent a number of petitions. Read, pressure, to put a stop to the development of new energy sources. The reason given was that it would disrupt the current economic balance. But markets naturally fluctuated, so this was a ridiculous reason. It wasn't as though Naruto wanted to diminish the economic power of the Land of Kizahashi. But the Land of Fire couldn't depend on other countries for energy forever. The director of the Institute's looking pretty sketchy. Some people or wondering if he wasn't the ringleader behind the assassination attempt. Shikamaru launched a web browser and brought up the Institute's official homepage. A photo of the director was on the page introducing the organization. He looked high-strung and wore glasses. Ken Fury, director of the Institute and physicist specializing in energy. He was born in the land of Kazuhashi and studied in the land of fire as a special student during the time of the 6th Hokage. Meaning he could come study in the land of fire because Master Kakashi put up the money, Naruto said. So then why would he have a grudge against us? It's possible his love for his country might be stronger than his debt to us, Shikamaru replied, tapping his laptop's keyboard. The screen switched to a list of shinobi affiliated with the village of Kanagakure. Don't know if Fury is in it, but at any rate, it's a fact that the assassination was planned. Probably a good idea to send a team to the land of Kazuhashi to investigate. It's too difficult a mission to keep to a genin, so I was thinking we put together a team with Konohamaru and Mira, a couple others. No, Naruto said firmly. Send Sasuke. You sure? Shikamaru raised his eyebrows. Yeah. He nodded. As long as Sasuke's here, he'll tend to me and his sickness. But I need him working for the sake of the village. No one else can do what he does. If that's your decision, fine. Are you going to notify him about it? No. You tell him, Shikamaru. Like always. As if waiting for this break in their conversation, someone knocked at the door. Without waiting for a reply, Moigi poked her head in and called to Shikamaru. There was a message from the Institute. I get it, Naruto. I'll tell Sasuke, Shikamaru said, and then left the Hokage's office. In the end, Naruto didn't leave the office until the late evening turned into the wee hours of an early tomorrow. Oh. I'm wiped. The mere touch of the night breeze on his skin felt rejuvenating, which also revealed how exhausted he was. The world in darkness was a soothing balm to his eyes, which had been staring into the glare of a computer screen all night. He dragged his feet through the old city, and 7 faces abruptly popped into view on the other side of the power lines. Hokage Rock. He hadn't been up there in a while, and he was seized with the sudden urge to see the view from the top of the rock again. So he whirled around and changed direction. He couldn't use chakra, so he scrambled up the rock using his hands, sat on the stone face of his father, and looked out on the old city. A sparse night seemed dotted with the lights of houses here and there. This modest sight was Naruto's pride. Beneath each and every one of those gentle lights was a person, and it made him happy to think about them eating supper or taking a bath with hard-fought security. This village was at peace. No one feared an invasion or attack from another nation, there was no threat of food scarcity, and there was no fear that a father who left home on a mission wouldn't come home again. In this tranquility, Master Kakashi laughed and told him old stories about Obito and Team Minato, and Sasuke took Sakura and Sarada to visit the graves of his family. Even as they carried their sad memories with them, they continued to move forward bit by bit. He wished he could have shown this world to his mom and dad. And to the pervy sage. And Pain. And Neji. And Zabuza and Haku. To think that the village of Konoha could be this peaceful. The truth was, he wanted all of them in this world too. How amazing. It would have been for all of them to smile at each other and say, "We're so lucky we get to live together in peace." He wished they were all still alive. He had enough of people suffering and dying. Naruto wanted to bring peace to the village. That was why he'd set out to become Hokage. The one who is accepted by all becomes the Hokage. Naruto had always worked for the sake of everyone else but himself. He wasn't so great at having anyone do anything for him. But whenever anyone was watching his back, they were Naruto's shield. Naruto stood up and looked down at the nose of the fourth, a little higher up on the face than was his own. At some point, he had gotten older than Minato was the day he was killed in the line of duty. Even now that his dream of being the Hokage had come true, Naruto's ninja path was unchanged. to never twist his own words, to keep fulfilling his dream of protecting the village as Hokage. But to do so, he had to be strong. I really gotta do something about this. He tried talking to himself, but even he could tell his voice was lacking spirit. Pushing away this anxiety, he clenched his hands into fists. At the same time, he dropped to his knees. An electrical current shot through his chest. His heart started to pound faster, and fireworks bounced around in his skull. NGH. Intense pain shot through his body. This time it felt deeper than usual. Why, NGH. It's not the same. His limbs trembled, and his body spasmed. The moisture of his throat evaporated. On all fours, Naruto moaned and clenched his teeth. His consciousness threatened to exit his head, but the pain pulsing through his body quickly brought it back. Be calm. It's the same as always. Grit your teeth and it'll be over before you know it. No sooner had he told himself this than a new level of extreme pain electrified his body to its core. On. He flapped his mouth open and closed and sent up a silent scream. His pulse was wild, his heart leaped erratically in his chest, and his body was so hot, it threatened to catch fire. NGH. HNGH. The heat and intense pain were practically ripping him open from the inside. He lost consciousness and slid down from the rocky face of the fourth Hokage. His body seized and shuddered, and as he fell he was caught by someone's arms. Naruto felt the soft thud of a landing, and the consciousness that had left him returned. Through a haze he saw familiar feet encased up to the ankle in traditional tabi shoes. Sasuke. Sasuke had Naruto tucked under his arm and gently set him down on the ground. He was kneading chakra in the palm of his hand. He created water-style water and spilled it onto Naruto's face, cooling the fire inside of Naruto's head, which was on the verge of overheating. Sasuke started to walk away. From the sound of his footsteps, Naruto realized that Sasuke was moving in the opposite direction of his house. Naruto pulled himself into a sitting position. Hold up, Sasuke. He desperately squinted to try and clear his foggy vision. The receding Sasuke was wearing the long black coat with a collar that he always wore on missions. From the unnatural bulge of it, Naruto knew he had a long sword on his back. You. What's with that outfit? You going somewhere? Sasuke stopped and looked back. As you can see, I'm leading Konoha. You going to the astronomical observatory? Sasuke nodded evenly. The blood rose to Naruto's freshly cooled head again. Come on, man. You got a notice from Shikamaru. Your next mission is to investigate who was behind the assassination attempt in the land of Kazahashi. You can't just go off dash. Not my problem, Sasuke said coolly and turned a strong, even angry gaze on Naruto. If you're not the Hokage, then there's no point. I won't go on any other missions until you're cured. You. Not happening, Sasuke. Naruto put some strength into his buckling knees and desperately pushed himself to his feet. Once Sasuke made up his mind, he never changed it. If Naruto was going to stop him, it would have to be with force. He needed chakra in the loose palm of his left hand. Instantly, a jolt of pain shot through his spine, and he nearly leaped into the air. Stop, Naruto. He heard Kurama say. Shut up, he replied in his head and continued to knead his chakra. The chakra was imbued with wind and began to spin chaotically. As if in response, Sasuke concentrated chakra in his right hand. Visible voltage bounced up, and the high-pitched cry of Chidori rang out. While pain shredded every part of him, Naruto readied his Rasengan and started running. Sasuke prepared to counter, raising his right hand to launch Chidori. Thump. Naruto staggered in agony. His reflexes gave up on releasing chakra. His Rasengan instantly faded away. And Sasuke's Chidori flew at Naruto's chest as he started to pitch forward. The pale electrical attack pierced his chest. Ong! Naruto dropped to his knees and was about to press a hand to his stomach where he'd been shot through, but he couldn't find any wound. When he looked up, Sasuke was looking down at him coolly from a distance. Jinjutsu? He thought as he toppled over. Perhaps his forcible kneading of chakra left him with zero strength. Even still, he managed to grasp at the earth and brace himself, but after thrusting his arms out and pushing his upper body up, he collapsed back onto the ground. Going easy on me, Naruto squeezed out, while he ate dirt. Going easy on a rival. Because you're a rival, Sasuke replied and turned his back to Naruto, the hem of his long coat swinging. Naruto, do not die before I get back. I'm telling you not to go. The sound of Sasuke's footsteps faded. He was headed to the astronomical observatory. Don't go. Don't go. Don't go, Naruto murmured over as he looked up at the muddy night sky. Gradually, he lost even his voice, and all he could make was a faint whistling sound in his throat. He was so cowardly letting Sasuke go, he could hardly stand it. As the Hokage, he was supposed to protect the village. But here he was now, being protected by people who should have been protecting the village. Naruto. He heard a familiar voice and slowly lifted his eyelids. Clear green eyes looked down on him in utter exasperation. Same old idiot as always. Me? Sasuke? Both of you, obviously. Sakura crouched down and gently helped Naruto sit up. She touched his cheek and poured chakra into the scrapes he'd gotten falling from the rock to heal them. Ever since his symptoms had begun, Naruto's natural healing power had dropped dramatically. Before this, scratches like these would have healed easily on their own. Sasuke left, Naruto said slowly. Sakura nodded easily. I know. If you know then, why didn't you stop him? I tried. But you know that Sasuke's impossible once he makes up his mind about something. Now that he's decided to help you, he'll do everything he can. Sakura removed the headband she had pushed high on her head to keep her hair back and set it down in the middle of her forehead as if to cover the Hyakugo jutsu mark there. I'm going after him soon myself. He'll probably use Susanoo, though, so I won't be able to catch up for a while. But what about Sarada? Naruto asked. I'll have someone I can trust take her, Sakura said. Shizen joined the deciphering team at the institute, so she's not around. But I'll find someone Sasuke trusts too. Can you stand? She slipped herself under Naruto's arm and stood him up, leaning him on her shoulder. Together, they took one step after another toward the old city. So, listen, Sakura started casually as she matched Naruto's pace. You remember you came to the hospital and we did those detailed tests? I just got the results back. You're basically in perfect health, but there was one weird thing. It looks like your chakra channels are closing up. My chakra channels? Sakura nodded and continued. But you don't have pain when I pour my chakra into you, and your scratches did in fact heal, right? That would mean you're not rejecting chakra itself. Most likely, the problem is with your chakra channels. If the Sage of Six Paths had the same symptoms, then the failure of your chakra channels is likely due to taking a biju into your body. But Gaara and B and them are all just fine, he protested. True, she agreed. This is just a hypothesis at best. Naruto lowered his gaze. If my chakra channels close, what'll happen to me? If the issue is only your chakra channels, you won't die if they close up. Sakura told him. You just won't ever be able to use chakra again. Just. The color drained from Naruto's already ghostly pale face. With the chakra of the nine tails inside of him, Naruto's fighting style depended on the amount of his intrinsic chakra. Not being able to need chakra now after all this time, to be honest, it would be a fate worse than death. That's serious, he said slowly. It is, Sakura replied with a sigh. But I'm relieved at any rate. We're not at war right now, and it doesn't really matter if the Hokage stops being able to use chakra. She was maybe right about that. But for Naruto, who had dreamed of becoming the Hokage since he was a child, a totally obvious prerequisite was that he had to be strong. That prerequisite hadn't changed since he became the 7th Hokage. Unable to say anything more, Naruto quietly dragged his still spasming left leg forward. He couldn't go home in his muddy clothes, so he spent the night in the nap room next to his office. He tossed his filthy clothes into the laundry, curled up in his shorts on the thin futon, and spent the rest of the night in thought. If he ultimately couldn't use chakra anymore, would he quit as Hokage? Or would he rethink old notions and determine that strength and force in a time of peace were no longer necessary? Would he then remain in his position? Yeah, I hate both options. There were still plenty of things he wanted to accomplish as Hokage. He had no interest in passing the torch when there was still more on his to-do list. Before he knew it, the dawning of a new day came without his getting a wink of sleep. He stepped back into his office early and finished up his routine duties. Not until it was past noon was he finally able to go back to his own house. When he opened the front door, he found a pair of unfamiliar Zori sandals, heels together, neatly placed on the entryway floor. Maybe Hinata's? Bit big for her though. He sat down on the step leading up to the house, and as he took off his shoes, Himawari came flying out of the living room, having heard him come in. It's Daddy. You're home. I sure am, Himawari. Okay, so, we have a guest. He drew this for me. She beamed at him and held up the paper in her hands. It was a portrait of Himawari and Hinata drawn in gentle pastel colors. Even Naruto, who knew nothing about art, could tell it was well drawn. A guest who can draw like this. Who? Naruto looked toward the door of the living room down the hallway. The faces of Sai and Inogen popped up in his head, but the Zori in the entryway were very much a woman's. Come to the living room. Come on. He's waiting for you, Daddy. Why, you bet. Yanked along by the hand, Naruto poked his head into the living room and almost choked on his tongue. Goodness. You're later than I was expecting. Sitting at the table and sipping tea was the elusive Snake Man, shiny black hair hanging to his waist. Orochimaru. End of Chapter 1. Thank you for listening. Remember to like and subscribe for lots more.